Yo, what's up guys? Another video on Punisher Abyss Crypt Heart thingy. A lot of people were saying like, yeah, I can build a Julie like yours. So we're looking at a lot lower rune quality for this, but you might be asking, is like, this is the same Julie and what is the team exactly? Well, I made this Julie to an artifact on the left side that has no beneficial stats for this whole thing at all. So all of the damage is just straight up lower. This thing is not gonna one-shot. But what do we have that is different here? Well, I also removed the Brandia just to make it full free to play. Once again, if you do have Brandia, I recommend highly to put Brandia in there rather than the Crow. But we have a nickel in here. And my nickel is not 2-8, but my nickel is here for a very specific reason. Because you can use perfect AI to not one-shot, but two-shot waves. And it actually works a little bit different. So we have one-shot with Brilliant move, and then we have the nickel move. Nickel has very fast animations actually, so it doesn't take too much time. But there's something interesting about as one of all of the living armors. As one of the living armor gives slow the moment that there is a defense break. Happening to be that we have Prilia in there, which is the best defense breaker in game, into an always S1, meaning we will always get a slow. This is pretty much the most guaranteed slow in the first rotation you can get. In this case, we didn't get the attack buff, so for that reason, we had a little bit worse of a rotation over there. But we also have the nickel being able to give slows towards the boss. So that makes things a lot better. In this case, we have a pretty bad run here. Once again, it is a lot better with Brandia. But even in this case, a lot of other runs would have like completely failed in here if you didn't get the attack buff. You would have to have like the attack buff and the debuffs. No, I think you just need the attack buff. Like Crow with the attack buffs and then the debuffs, which is the armor break and the slow, which you get on regular base. So you don't need the extra debuffs from the Igar. It would already be enough. So you just need that, or you need the Igar to actually land its stuff, and then it's definitely going to win there. So, and I would say that the rune quality on the Crow is not the best, because my Crow is runed right now, while my Arang is still runed from the previous team, and while my Brandia is still runed from the previous team. So I definitely recommend, if you can one-shot the waves, watch the other video. It's definitely way better. It's definitely way faster. But this is giving you 25-second averages. Well, not average, but if the run goes longer on that, it's probably like, I would say 30 average. But it's still giving you 25-second runs, which is a lot faster than those teams with like all of those verts, team-ups, blah, 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 that kind of stuff that gives you like 40 to 50 seconds. This is still like a good 10 seconds faster. And I would say that this team is pretty insane. Also, thing to mention, my copper is not 2-8. So, or not my copper, my other thingy. So yeah, with that you could add in quite some extra damage as well. But yeah, you kind of need that attack buff for the Crow to hit properly to do enough damage, which in this case the Crow just doesn't do. And you would have to make Crow pretty tanky if you actually want to make it fully on survivability. So would I recommend this version of the team with the Crow? No. Like the team with the Brandia or the team with the Julie one-shot with the Crow is somewhat more doable. This, I don't really recommend to do that with the Crow. Like it's there, it's possible, but you would need pretty good runes to the Crow for both survivability and rage as well. I think it's doable to make, but it's not really something that I would recommend people to go for in the first place. But I can also show you that the Crow is, I would say, somewhat mediocre, scuffed, ruined looking. It's not that crazy at all. But that is because my Arang and my Brandia are still ruined. Would I put the absolute best runes to it that I have? Then I might be able to do it, but yeah, I don't think it's going to be that easy. Let's see if we run this with the Brandia that I was also running in the previous team. So that does mean that, okay, you still need like a decent to good set on the Julie, but you can get away with quite some lower damage because you can actually put damage towards the zinc as well. But yeah, with that damage of the Brandia, let's see if the Brandia actually one-shots the moment that Igar doesn't go for the attack buff, because that was the issue scenario in this case. So let's see if we can get an Igar derp. It's probably going to take 6 times right now because Igar doesn't want to derp at this moment as one. Sucker. So yeah, with that, you always kill. With if Crow would do that, always kills. Simple as that. Too bad that Igar doesn't have like a better AI state to use the S3 or the S2. I tested it a little bit more with like getting the unit to very low HP. Doesn't really help as well. I also tried if I would to put the Arang in the slot of Brandia in this case, but it's just too little on damage. And the big difference is with Brandia compared to the other two units. The other two units are just hard scaling from enemy debuffs. The moment that this unit, the Eigar, doesn't go for the S2, there's only 2 debuffs. So the scaling on the final unit isn't that high. However, Brandia also scales from cannot stun the enemy. And for that reason, you don't care as much about debuffs, but you always have that mechanic of cannot stun the enemy. And for that reason, it's just a lot better. Plus, I don't really like Crow in here. Like, I would have, if this team would have worked with a Rang on the slot of Brandia, it would have been insane. But yeah, that's not really the possible case. So this team, if you cannot make the Julie, I think a lot of people can probably make this. You just need that Brandia. That's the only thing. You need Brandia. You don't even have to 2A Nickel. It would be better if Nickel is 2-8, I guess. Like, I'm not entirely even sure what he adds in for getting 2-8. It's probably better. But okay, now we have that. You also decided not to go for your skill because you're not on perfect DI state. Yep, that's fair. That's fair. That's annoying. Yeah, that also does happen to work sometimes where you just decide not to go for your skills because you're like, yep, no, fuck that. Not gonna land my shit. Let's see how this run works out furthermore. We do have the Nickel providing a lot of the slows all the time. So that definitely does help. And I'm not sure. I think Julie just AoE'd killed the whole side crystals. What the fuck is this ultimate this run doing, man? So yeah, that's the thing with this team. Why is this team being able to get a 1 minute run and still surviving? It's because of that Nickel. That Nickel actually gives a slow every time he gets hits. And I think that number goes up the moment he's 2-8. I could be wrong in that. I would have to check what that thing actually does on 2-8. But yeah, this is definitely for in the case you want to run this fast, but you're saying like, okay, I don't have that Julie one-shot. I would say that this is probably your best option to still clear waves, still have the right skills on the Aegir up, because that's the issue. You could let Aegir move to clear waves and that kind of stuff. You don't really recommend that. In this case, there was no attack buff, but there were debuffs and the Brandia one-shot. So those are the kind of scenarios that you could be looking at. Like, okay, one of the two things happened. The other one was not there, but the Brandia still at least one-shot. Also, these runs are just decently to incredibly safe because of that protection that the Nickel gives of just giving that slow to the boss all the time, which it just kind of helps out. Plus, you have the highest up chance of getting a slow on the boss because you will most likely have that armor break from the Prilia. And then you have a guaranteed S1 from the Nickel because Nickel doesn't have a skill 3. You will always go for S1 because the S2 is on cooldown. And for that reason, it's just a very easy clear for that. So is this full free to play? Maybe if you have an insane Chrome, but I would say if you have an insane Chrome, maybe you can actually put that towards the Julie as well and then make the Julie one-shot. It could be. I don't know exactly how that would work out. I would say for Julie one-shotting, it's more based on artifacts rather than like an insane amount of damage on like attack and crit damage. And therefore, you might be able to say like, okay, I can squeeze out like the best set on a Crow and then the second best set on a Julie, and you make decent damage to the Zinc that is then 2, or not the Zinc, the Nickel that's 2-8. Nickel doesn't do too much damage, but if you have the chip damage of like about 4Ks and you go for crit damage is low and that kind of stuff, then that's definitely probably the way to go. And as you can see here, I'm getting like, the moment it runs correctly, I'm getting consistent 25-second averages, which it's not going to be the true average because you're going to have derps in there, and because of the derps, it's going to be like some 1 minute runs, or this thing decides not to go for the right skills, freaking Brandia. But I would say true average is probably somewhere a little bit above 30 or so. So in this case, everyone is going for all kinds of weird skills. I haven't seen that happen before. But let's see how we recover in this stage. Do you still have your skills right now? We still go for those two. Yeah, you do have your skills. Goes for an S1. Can we actually clear? Yeah, that's the annoying thing where Brandia decides it's like, yeah, I don't really like to do my skills at that moment. And for that reason, it also laps the Prilia, which is also not great, because if it actually was an armor break into a hit, it would have been a lot better, because then we would have actually had like proper damage. But you can see that the slow is there a lot of the times. And because the slow of the being there a lot of the times, also I've made my Aegir a little bit more tanky. You can just have a lot longer run, but still be fine. But also, if everything goes right, have like those 25-second in runs all the time. So I would say, I'm not 100% sure if this team is like super consistent, but I would definitely say that this is a team that I could see myself running if I didn't have the Julie one-shot. This was also my main plan. If I couldn't make Julie to one-shot, this was my main idea. I'm gonna use Nickel for the wave clear. After that wave clear, I just clean up with other units and then look for something there. So maybe you can find something better for the Aprilia slot or even the Aegir slot or any of those slots to make this more consistent. But the idea of these 3 units with the Julie, the Aprilia, and then the Nickel, I think the Aprilia is kind of needed because of that armor break and then into a slow, because that's the core thing about this team. I would say that this team is more 5-head than the previous team that I showcased. But let's look at the runes. Talked a lot. Let's look at runes. So average on this one was about 34. We had like 1 bad run in there. I'm not sure how often you get bad runs in there, but I would say this team is probably like 30 to 30, like 35 average. So it's definitely better than the teams which you see with like team ups and then a Vert, or team ups and then a Pang or anything like that. So this one I made it a little bit more tanky, and I think it's better for this in general. I am not entirely sure how much accuracy is needed, but I just went for like, I kind of went overboard on it because I noticed at some point I was lacking. So the Julie, the attack and the defense, or the attack and the crit damage are pretty high. I will actually check what's the difference between how much damage she does on this artifact compared to what she normally does, because the amount of fight sets are the same. And then we're going to see like how much that actually is of a difference. Aprilia is still the same thing, only just up the accuracy as well. In this case, it still has 2 fights or 2 accuracy sets in there, so it will end up at 60. This one is also at 60. This one is just also whatever damage I could find, still some damage on light and that kind of stuff. This one doesn't... Oh yeah, it's just to max out like the accuracy as one, like, because I'm still not sure how much we need. And then the Brandia is the same as before, so the Brandia does need like a proper set. If you go for Brandia, if you go for Crow, you need like an even more insane set. So let's look at the damage difference for what my Julie does right now compared to what my Julie is doing on her proper artifact. So you can actually see that an artifact matters like a world of difference to farming this team. So let's see, we put it to ×1. We go for this skill. How much damage are we looking at? We're looking at 3.8s on the middle ones. I'm just, because I'm lazy as hell and I don't care about 9 energy for the Zontent. We're going to go into the same team again. We're going to switch it to the proper artifact. Proper artifact being, of course, a good combination of additional damage by attack in combination with some damage on a light. Where are you at here? So we have a increase of 14, 0, 3, and an 8. Absolutely exactly the stats that you would like to see on that. We were doing like 3.8 and then low, like 30s, 40s, some 50s in there. How much are we doing with this skill over here right now? We went for 3.8 to 4.6 for just one artifact being good. That is how important artifacts are for this dungeon. So yeah, that's an insane amount of increase. If you try to get this much damage increase with the rune, you need like a crazy rune upgrade. You're not gonna get that. This is just a good artifact upgrade. It's not even the craziest of artifact upgrades. Well, I would say it's pretty good. Like 14 plus an 8 is definitely not bad. But that's what you can see, what you can do. Like if your Julie is not one-shotting, farm more artifacts. That's all you need. Like if you say like, I don't have the rune quality, like, it's not free to play because cut tier runes. No, it's not free to play because you didn't farm artifacts. And you don't have these artifacts because the artifacts is the actual damage increase, not the runes. Well, the runes by a certain extent, like sure, artifacts amplify whatever runes you put in the first place, but it's artifacts. And everyone's saying like, that's not free to play because it's not free to play runes. Well, artifacts are always free to play. You just gotta farm them, bro. So that's it for this video. Hope you learned a thing or two, and this is definitely not the team that I will be using because I don't need a zinc in here, and then zinc would also, or not the zinc, I keep saying zinc, the copper. Add them all, silver, iron, copper, nickel, all of these things, like featuring nickel, Lil Wayne, I don't even freaking know. It's not going to be good for me right now because it's going to use S2 at the wrong time, and S2 will trigger this thing on the left, and then everything goes batshit. So I will go back to my own team that I was using before. I actually showcased it as a 24-second average with upgraded runes and some more tuning. I actually made it 22-second average. So guys, thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you as always in the next one.